You made me a dictator. Welcome. Today we are going to talk about one of history's most fascinating professions. Not medicine, not engineering, not being an astronaut. Today's subject is dictatorship. Let's begin with the dictionary. A dictator is someone who comes to power claiming to govern on behalf of the people, then gradually begins making decisions instead of the people. Eventually, power intoxicates him so completely that he can no longer distinguish himself from the state. But dictators share one great secret. They are almost never elected as dictators. No candidate stands before a crowd and says, "If you elect me, I will silence the press. I will control the courts. I will label the opposition as enemies. I will run the state as if it were my private company." If they did, nobody would vote for them. Instead, they praise democracy. They praise freedom. They praise justice. They praise the Constitution. They praise the rule of law. Sometimes they speak so beautifully that people begin to believe they are voting not for a government, but for paradise itself. Then the election ends. The masks come off, and the real game begins. The first victim is merit, because competence asks questions. Loyalty applauds. That is why the most qualified people are quietly replaced by the most obedient ones. From that moment on, what matters is no longer what you know. It is whom you serve. Then the newspapers begin printing the same headlines. Television channels repeat the same talking points. Every debate sounds exactly the same, because independent thinking has slowly become a dangerous hobby. Then comes the economy. A strange kind of mathematics appears. The people become poorer. The statistics become richer. Food prices rise. Official explanations become cheaper. Taxes increase. Sacrifice is always demanded from ordinary citizens. Austerity is always something that someone else should practice. People work. Then they work even harder. Still, it is never enough. So they are told to be patient, because patience is free. Salaries are not. Meanwhile, society quietly divides into two groups: those who applaud and those who must explain why they do not. One day the leader says black. Everyone applauds. The next day he says white. They applaud again. On the third day he says, "I always meant gray." And that is when the loudest applause erupts, because truth no longer matters. The goal is no longer to believe what is said. The goal is to applaud whatever is said. At this point, one of the most famous quotations in history comes to mind. "Religion is the opium of the people." The statement has been debated for generations. Some agree with it, others reject it completely. Yet one thing remains true. When faith lives in the human conscience, it can elevate humanity. When it becomes a tool of political power, it can damage the shared values that hold a society together. Now we arrive at the final act. The media is under control. State institutions are under control. The economy is under control. The judiciary is under control. Fear is under control. And most importantly, the people have fallen silent. At that very moment, the dictator looks into the mirror. A faint smile appears. Then he speaks the sentence that history will remember. "The reason I became a dictator is you." The crowd falls silent. For a brief moment, everyone looks at one another. Then thunderous applause fills the square. And that is where the darkest satire begins, because perhaps, for the first time in his life, the dictator has come closest to telling the truth. A dictator never rises alone. He is lifted by those who applaud him, by those who stop questioning him, by those who abandon criticism, and above all, by societies that gradually surrender their freedoms in exchange for small privileges. Democracy does not die in a single day. It grows quieter, day after day. And by the time people finally realize they have lost their freedom, they may no longer be free enough to speak. That is why dictatorship is never merely the story of one man. It is the story of the day an entire society stopped looking into the mirror. Your author, Mario Spola, says, "Dictatorship is not when one person silences everyone. It is when everyone allows only one person to be heard."